All right, now this is the answering some of the questions after the lesson. So we're still doing AA5, factoring the quadratics with the leading coefficient. So looking at number 1. First step is to take your A and your C, so 2 and 11, and multiply them together. Give you 22. And now write down all the factors for 22. So 1 and 22, and then 2 and 11. That's the only things that are going to go into it. So what two added together make positive 13? Well, 1 and 22, they're going to make 23, so 2 and 11, that makes 13. So you're going to use 2 and 11. So when you write these down, you want to make sure to do 2q squared, so writing that down, you're rewriting 13q as 2q and 11q, and then the back part, which is your 11. Okay? All right, now we're going to factor this part. So 2q squared plus 2q, and then we're going to write the other one down, 11q plus 11. And we're going to take out this one. So what can come out of both of these? What can come out of 2q squared and 2q? Well, obviously this has a 2q, this has a 2q, so that's what we're going to pull out. We're going to pull out a 2q. And then we're going to be left with a q, because this was q squared, so we're going to be left with a q. And then 2q and 2q, well, obviously the only thing left is 1. It has to have a placeholder, and you can't have 0. 2q divided by 2q gives you 1. So you're left with q plus 1. So now, if you factor this one, and you don't get q plus 1 inside of your parentheses, you did something wrong. Okay? So 11q and 11, the only thing coming out of both of those is 11. And so 11 divided by 11, or take out 11, leaves you with a q only. And then 11 divided by 11 is 1. So when you did 11 divided by 11 here, it gave you a q. 11 divided by 11 here gave you a 1. So now, not done, you got the first part of your answer, 2q plus 11, 2q plus 11, both are positive, that's why it's plus, and then what was left in the parentheses, q plus 1. All right. Now, second question, if you want to pause to work through it, recommend you do that at this time. So 4 times 5, A times C, so 4 times 5 gives you 20. You're going to factor out 20, so 1 and 20, 2 and 10, 3 doesn't go into it, and then 4 and 5. Okay? Now, what two added together make 9? 1 and 20 make 21, 2 and 10 make 12, so 4 and 5 are the obvious choices. So you're going to rewrite it, 4u squared plus, and then 4u plus 5u, just to break down that 9, and then 5. Okay? Now group it together, so 4u squared plus 4u, and then 5u plus 5. And then what comes out of the 4u squared and the 4u? Hopefully you said 4u. So you're left with 1u plus 1. 4u divided by 4u is 1. And then over here, pull out a 5. And you're left with u plus 1 over here as well. So your answer should be 4u plus 5. And then u plus 1. Okay? All right. Looking at question number 3. This will be our last question of this video. I've got 4 more questions, I believe. Yeah, 4 more questions. That'll increase in difficulty. The first 3 questions and the example question is something that you'll see for about the first 60 to 65% of the questions on IXL. Some of y'all may get it a little earlier, but I did not. And then the rest of these problems are what you're going to see out of the rest of your IXL. So we're going to do this last one, and then we'll move on to some harder problems in the next video. So your A plus your C, or times your C, so 3 times 2, 6. So write all your factors as 6. 1 and 6, 2 and 3. And then what adds together to be 5? 2 and 3. So break down that 5. You're going to rewrite your 3q squareds from up here, 3q squared. And then your 2q, and then your 3q. 2q plus 3q equals 5q. And then don't forget your 2 at the end. All right, now rewrite it. 3q squared plus 2q, and then 3q plus 2. So all you did was basically take out that plus, so that way you can factor the first 2, and then factor the second 2. All right, so factoring the first 2, what comes out of both of those? Hopefully you can say a q only, which is correct. So a q only. So if I took a q out of a q squared, there's still 1 q left and the 3. And then if I took a q away from the 2q, you're left with just the 2. Okay. Now, this is a problem we hadn't come into yet. You might have run into it in your Excel if you've tried some since the first video. But you notice that 3q and 2, nothing comes out. But something has to factor out of it. Something has to. If you don't have something in front of this parentheses that factors out of both of these, then you're going to come up with something wrong. Okay, well, obviously something always comes out. Always. Well, what do you think always comes out? A 1. Okay, the 3q and the 2 both have a 1 in common. They can both be divided by 1. It doesn't change anything, but you need it in order to get the right answer. Okay, so you're left with the 3q plus 2. Notice they're the same. All right, so your first part of your answer, q plus 1. Second part of your answer, 3q is kind of a bad 3, plus 2.